Luis cheated on me with his stepsister in the 3rd year he stayed by my side during my battle with cancer, right when I was about to die. Broken in both body and soul. I decided to leave and let them be together. But I didn't die. 5 years later, I survived cancer. As the only medical miracle in the field, I was invited back to the country as a teaching case. Even more coincidentally, the chief physician participating in this research project was my ex-husband, Luis. Congratulations on being reborn. I caught sight of the faded wedding ring on his ring finger and smiled faintly. Thank you. When the project ended and I turned to leave, he grabbed my wrist. After taking off his white coat, his eyes instantly reddened. Elena, I'm married. You came too late. I smiled and kindly reminded him. Since you're married, you should really change your wedding ring. Otherwise, I might actually think that Dr. Luis is still hung up on old feelings. Pablo's driver called. When I answered, the wallpaper of my wedding photo with Pablo stabbed painfully into Luis's eyes. Chapter 1. Madam, I'll come to the hospital to pick you up right away. Okay. I hung up the phone, completely ignoring the stunned Luis beside me. You have a boyfriend? It was as if he suddenly figured something out. He subconsciously took out a cigarette, but when the cigarette reached his lips, he chose to put it back into the pack. He gave a self-mocking smile. So 5 years ago, it was because of him? 5 years ago, at my most desperate moment, I personally witnessed him being intimate with Victoria. That was why I gave up treatment and went looking for death. How did it turn, in Luis's mouth, into me being the unfaithful bastard? I looked at him calmly, meeting his reddened eyes. Sorry, Luis. I don't want to talk about my private life with you. Luis's eyes were bloodshot. He snapped the cigarette in his hand. Why? I stayed with you through 3 years of cancer treatment when you were at your worst. I never once thought of abandoning you. I let out a mocking smile and didn't answer him directly. Instead, I looked toward Victoria, who was walking over not far away. Luis's stepsister, and now his wife. She was pregnant, and beside her stood a 5-year-old boy. Luis, it's been 5 years since our divorce, right? And now your eldest son is already 5. Congratulations. That single sentence left Luis speechless. 5 years ago, my cancer metastasized, while I struggled daily on the brink of life and death. Luis booked a couple's room in the ward next to mine. Every day, he was next door entwined with his stepsister. When I was close to dying, he was accompanying Victoria during childbirth. The doctor issued a critical condition notice and told him to come see me one last time. I called him again and again, even when he saw the calls. He didn't answer. Dragging my weakened body, I walked to the ward next door. I saw him holding Victoria after delivery, his face full of tenderness. When Elena is gone, I'll marry you. Those words completely stripped away my will to live. I had known Luis for 15 years, loved him for 10, and been married to him for 5. But for 3 of those years, he was entangled with Victoria. When I was about to die, he was welcoming new life, waiting for me to die. So from that day on, I planned my own death, as he wished to complete them, but I didn't die. Now that I've come back, what right does he have to blame me for disappearing? Luis didn't feel that he was wrong at all. He rubbed the old wedding ring we once shared and muttered, if you hadn't suddenly left, we might already have had a child by now. None of this is anyone's fault. It's useless even if you regret it. I sneered. You're overthinking it. I've never regretted anything. Chapter 2. The atmosphere grew tense. Dad! The little boy's voice broke the silence. A chubby little body crashed straight into Luis's arms. Victoria stopped in her tracks. When she saw me, her face went pale. Elena, you're not dead? Her hand tightened unconsciously, making her son cry out in pain. Mom, you're hurting me. Only I knew why she was panicking. Back then, when I was at my weakest, it was she who showed me the intimate videos of her and Luis. She even deliberately told me she was pregnant with Luis's child. I lay on my hospital bed, enduring both physical and mental torment. I nearly died in that hospital, to make me die sooner and clear the way for herself to become Mrs. Luis. She even secretly switched my anti-cancer medication. I never had the chance to tell Luis any of this. So I'm not dead. Disappointed? One sentence left Victoria speechless. But she quickly composed herself, forced a smile, and hooked her arm around Luis's. It's good that you're alive. I should even thank you if you hadn't left. Luis and I would never have ended up together. Elena, you must really regret leaving without a word back then, don't you? But even if you hadn't left, Luis wouldn't have loved you anyway. Your divorce was only a matter of time. She flaunted it in front of me, trying to make me collapse the way I did 5 years ago. But now I no longer loved him. I even found Victoria a little ridiculous. I walked up to Victoria, raised my hand, and slapped her across the face. I do regret something, regret not settling accounts with you the moment you swapped out my cancer medication. Victoria's head snapped to the side from the blow. Luis stared at her in shock, then turned to scrutinize her. What's going on? Victoria panicked. Luis. She's lying. She's just jealous that I'm with you and trying to sow discord. If I'd really tried to hurt her, could she be standing here perfectly fine? Luis held her, his gaze gentle. Don't upset the baby. Then he turned to me in anger. Elena, apologize. Luis's reaction didn't surprise me in the slightest. He had always trusted Victoria unconditionally. After I married Luis, Victoria once deliberately threw herself down the stairs and framed me for it. To vent her anger, Luis forced me, pregnant at the time, to roll down the stairs again and again, until Victoria was satisfied. Elena, this is the price you pay for hurting Victoria. I looked at the blood pooling beneath me and let out a bitter smile. So the price was killing the child in my womb? Later, I faked my death and left. Victoria showed up at my funeral holding her child, publicly announcing that she and Luis were together. Luis knelt before his father, kowtowing in front of everyone, begging him to approve of his relationship with Victoria. Even when the entire family became a laughingstock in the business world, he didn't care. After his father agreed, they kissed passionately in front of my black and white portrait. Not a single person shed a tear at my funeral. Everything felt like a lifetime ago. But now, I felt neither sorrow nor pain, watching their display of affection. My heart didn't ripple in the slightest. Sorry, Luis, but I will never apologize to a mistress. Who are you calling a mistress? Elena? Say that again clearly. Victoria wanted to come at me, but Luis pulled her into his arms, soothing her, afraid she might get agitated and hurt the baby. I turned around and walked toward the exit. I hadn't gone far before Luis ran after me. He grabbed my shoulders, breathing heavily. Elena, can you stop throwing a tantrum? I know you made up a boyfriend just to make me angry, but as long as you apologize to us for disappearing all these years, we can forgive you. Your body hasn't fully recovered yet. I'll take full responsibility for your follow-up treatment. Forgive you? I let out a cold laugh. What makes you think I'd care about your forgiveness? My mother's death, I will never forget it, even if I die. Chapter 3. Luis pressed his lips together, his eyes trembling. He must have remembered something. Your mother's death was an accident. She tried to push Victoria and fell herself. It wasn't anyone's fault. I met his gaze, barely able to restrain my anger. Even now, you're still defending Victoria. Luis, is Victoria's life a life? But my mother's isn't? She just wanted justice for me, and she was killed by you people because of that. 5 years ago, I wasn't the only one who caught him and Victoria in the act. My mother did too, and the true trigger that made me fake my death and leave for good was my mother's death. When I was lying in a hospital bed, barely clinging to life, my mother couldn't find Luis to take care of me. Instead, she saw him with Victoria in the ward next door. She already had heart disease. That day, she took 3 fast-acting heart pills before going to find Luis to demand justice for me. The argument in the stairwell grew louder and louder. I wanted to tell my mother to just let it go, but when I struggled there, what I saw was Luis shielding Victoria and pushing my mother down the stairs. A nail pierced straight into my mother's head. She didn't even have the chance to cry for help before she died unwillingly. When she died, her eyes wouldn't close. I held my mother's body, desperately crying for help. Luis never appeared again. He even transferred away the capable surgeons in the hospital, just to tend to Victoria's minor scrapes. After my mother died, I escaped from the hospital. I personally handled her funeral arrangements. On the day of the memorial, Luis, my husband, didn't show up. When I called him, he was accompanying Victoria for a prenatal checkup. I still remember exactly what Luis said that day. Elena, your mother was just as unreasonable and vicious as you. Just because I was taking care of Victoria, she made a huge scene and accused me of betraying you. She died? Then she deserved it. Who told her to go pick a fight with Victoria? After the call ended, he blocked me. No one knows how I survived those 3 days. I cut my arms again and again with a knife, trying to follow my mother in death, until someone found me and rushed me to the hospital. When I woke up, it happened to be the day Victoria gave birth. He was with Victoria, celebrating the child's arrival, saying that once I died, he would marry her. I still clung to a last shred of hope, that if he knew my mother had truly died, he would at least burn a stick of incense for her, for the sake of our marriage. But the first thing he did after finding out was use power and money to erase all truths surrounding my mother's death, completely absolving himself and Victoria of any responsibility. When I accused him, he brushed it off lightly. People die when they die. What do you want me to do? I'm a doctor, not a god. What exactly do you want? Do you have to destroy Victoria to be satisfied? Elena, if you keep making trouble, I'll cut off your follow-up treatment. Recalling all this, a trace of guilt surfaced in Luis's eyes. I didn't know it would be such a coincidence. There just happened to be a nail. Do you really insist on living in the past and refusing to move on? With reddened eyes, I tugged at the corner of my lips. Yeah, what a coincidence. Just happened to be a nail. Luis frowned. What do you mean? I had no intention of telling him my true purpose for returning, at least not yet. After calming myself down, I spoke again. One day you'll know the truth. I just hope that when that day comes, you'll still be so firm in choosing your Victoria. Chapter 4. I didn't want to have any further entanglement with Luis. I quickly took a taxi and rushed back to the hotel. My body hadn't fully recovered yet. I got tired more easily than others. The confrontation with Luis just now had drained all my strength. The moment I lay down on the hotel bed, I slipped into a heavy sleep. I didn't know how long had passed before the vibration of my phone woke me up. Groggily, I answered the call. Victoria was screaming hysterically. Elena, you were already dead. Why did you come back? Luis has always been mine, from beginning to end. He never loved you. Rubbing my throbbing head, suppressing the anger of being woken up, I snapped back. Victoria, are you insane? She grew even more unhinged. Anyone who gets in the way of me and Luis deserves to die, just like your mother. I jolted fully awake. Victoria, that nail, you put it there on purpose. Do you know why Luis destroyed all the surveillance footage? Elena, just admit it, from beginning to end, you were the real mistress. Victoria let out a sinister laugh and hung up before I could respond, clutching my chest. My legs gave out and I collapsed hard onto the floor. I had never imagined that Luis would go so far as to protect a murderer for Victoria's sake. I still remembered how, when his parents divorced, he was abandoned like a feral child. It was my mother who brought him home, clothed him, cooked for him. Whenever he had nowhere to go, he would come to my house and cling to my mother, calling her mom. After Victoria appeared, he never went to my home again, and in the end, he even shielded the person who killed my mother. If my mother's spirit could see this, she would be even more heartbroken than I was. Luis's voice sounded outside the door. He pounded on it urgently. Elena, are you pretending to be dead again? Open the damn door. After the staff unlocked the door, he rushed in with reddened eyes. Seeing me collapsed on the floor, he yanked me up and brutally threw me onto the bed. Is this fun? Elena, do you love pretending to be dead this much? Why didn't you answer my calls? I turned on my phone. Over 100 missed calls, some from Victoria, the rest from Luis. Messages nearly filled up my memory. I sneered. You care about me? He froze, frowning deeply. Don't flatter yourself. I just don't want you dying on my turf. I don't want trouble. Is that so? My eyes reddened. Then you're really biased. Victoria can do whatever she wants, and you'll use money to clean up after her. But if I die, you don't even want to take responsibility. Luis pressed his lips together. Victoria is my wife, Do I need a reason to favor her? I laughed. He had forgotten that 5 years ago, I had been his wife too. I'm just here to notify you to attend the seminar. Don't make everyone wait for you alone. With that, Luis left with a cold expression. I lay on the bed for a long time before strength finally returned to my limbs. I went to the hospital alone. At the hospital entrance, Victoria stopped me. Her eyes were bloodshot, her voice hoarse from crying. Bitch. I knew it! You suddenly came back just to steal Luis from me. Tell me, did Luis go to the hotel to see you just now? Where did he touch you? How many times did you do it? Tell me. Victoria was like a madwoman, tearing at my clothes non-stop. I shoved her away. A woman who steals another woman's husband will live forever in fear of losing him. Looking at her, it felt like I was seeing my past self. You guess. Victoria completely lost control. She grabbed my arm, suddenly dropped to her knees, and kowtowed to me. Instantly, it drew a crowd. She raised her voice, crying hysterically. I'm begging you, Elena, please let Luis go. I'm begging you for the sake of the child in my belly, have mercy and stop stealing my husband. Countless gazes gathered around us. Isn't that the influencer Victoria who married the doctor? That's her! Ever since she went public with Luis, they've been so in love. Who would have thought some shameless mistress would force her way in? Disgusting. Knowing he's married and still becoming the third party. Is her mother dead or what? No one taught her basic decency? Suddenly, reporters swarmed in. Dozens of microphones shoved toward me. An unknown crowd pressed in from all sides, sealing me in with no room to breathe. We've heard you're Luis's ex-wife 5 years ago. You faked your death to elope with another man. Now that you're back, is it because you were abandoned? Bitch. Miss Victoria is so kind, and you still dare bully her. Do you think us fans don't matter? They shoved me around. Someone seized the chance to stab at me with an awl. I pushed back hard. Blood instantly sprayed from my arm. At that moment, Victoria suddenly screamed, clutching her stomach as she collapsed to the ground. Blood pooled beneath her. Elena! It's one thing if you want to steal Luis, but why won't you even spare my unborn child? I didn't know when Luis appeared. He held Victoria nervously in his arms and glared at me with hatred. Elena, if anything happens to Victoria or my child, I will never let you off. And how exactly do you plan not to let her off? A familiar voice came from behind the crowd. A man stepped out of a Maybach, striding straight toward me. Seeing who it was, I finally relaxed. Luis straightened, narrowing his eyes. The billionaire CEO. Pablo? Pablo swiftly took off his jacket and draped it over me. Seeing my wound, his entire expression turned icy. Holding me close, he looked at Luis coldly. Let me introduce myself. I'm Elena's husband, Pablo. Just now, you said you wanted to settle accounts with my wife? Then let me ask you this. My mother-in-law died in an accident at your hospital, and my wife was nearly murdered there after her medication was maliciously switched. So tell me, how should this account be settled? Chapter 5. Luis stared in shock. What did you say? You're Elena's husband? How is that possible? Pablo sneered. What? Do I need to show you my marriage certificate with Elena? Too bad, you're not qualified to see it. Luis still refused to believe it. He turned to look at me instead. Elena, what exactly did you give Pablo that made him come here and act crazy with you? There are so many reporters here today. Aren't you afraid this will blow up and you won't be able to explain yourself? Pablo had no interest in wasting words on Luis. He cast a cold glance over the crowd. With just that look, the bodyguards who came with him swiftly sealed off the entire scene. All the reporters who had been pointing cameras and shouting at me lowered their equipment in silence. I was held in his arms. The oppressive aura radiating from him made everyone present feel fear. Yet I alone felt an overwhelming sense of security. Pablo, no one was unaware of his ruthless methods. At 16, he began controlling the family conglomerate. At 18, he led the family to expand overseas. At 22, Pablo brought his family to become the world's richest. Along the way, he showed no mercy to any opponent. Anyone who opposed his family or offended Pablo, he had the power to make them disappear completely and swallow all their assets. He rose to power step by step through these cold-blooded methods. The reporters knew even better what happened to those who crossed Pablo. Losing their jobs would be the least of it. Losing their lives was what they truly feared. Pablo spoke slowly. Who was it just now who injured my wife? I want you to step forward on your own. Otherwise, when I find you myself, you won't be able to bear the consequences. Only then did Luis notice my wound. When were you injured? I scoffed. Luis, you should ask your wife properly. How did it just so happen that reporters appeared all at once today? It was as if something suddenly clicked for him. He turned to look at Victoria lying on the ground, disbelief written all over his face. Victoria, what is going on? Victoria clutched her stomach in pain, cold sweat pouring down. I don't know, Luis. Save me and the baby. My stomach hurt so much. Luis couldn't care about anything else. The child mattered more. Just as he was about to carry Victoria away, Pablo's bodyguards blocked his path. Move. Even if you're powerful, can you really bear the consequences if someone dies? Pablo looked down at him with disdain and sneered. Of course I can, but if anything happens to my wife, you and your wife won't be able to bear it. Until the person who injured my wife is found, no one is leaving. With that, he had a surgeon brought in to examine and treat my wound. Mr. Pablo, the weapon must be retrieved for testing. The wound itself isn't very serious, but the weapon may carry a virus. Your wife's condition is special. Even a trace of virus could be fatal. The attacker must be identified immediately. Pablo gripped my hand tightly, his face full of rage. I'll count down from 3. If you don't step out, I have my own methods, and when that time comes, I absolutely won't let it go. 3, 2, I admit it. I did it. Chapter 6. A lean man crawled out of the crowd, trembling. His legs shook so badly he didn't dare lift his head. I recognized him. He was the one who had shouted the loudest earlier, Victoria's most fanatical male supporter. Pablo gave the bodyguards a look. They stepped forward, subdued the man, and conducted a full search. His clothes were stripped off one by one. He stood naked before everyone, utterly humiliated. Yet he didn't dare utter a single word of complaint. From a hidden pocket in his clothes, the guards found a pair of blood-stained scissors. Pablo frowned and handed them to the doctor, with a casual wave of his hand. Deal with it. The guards understood immediately. They pulled out a black hood and yanked it over the man's head. They lifted him and dragged him away. The man's legs went limp in terror. He was practically dragged across the ground. A foul-smelling puddle trailed beneath him. Sir, please spare me. I'll confess who's behind this. Please, let me live. Pablo waved his hand again. The guards brought him back. They removed the hood and forced him to kneel in front of me. Pablo wrapped an arm around me and gently turned my head aside. I knew he didn't want my eyes sullied. Just like when we first met, he was dealing with a corporate traitor. When the bullet pierced through, I felt sick for a long time. From that day on, Pablo never let me see blood again, so I simply leaned quietly against him, taking a rest. I had been standing too long. My body was exhausted. He supported me silently, his voice low and dangerous. Speak. The man was about to talk, when Victoria interrupted him. She clutched Luis in panic, begging repeatedly, Luis, take me away. I really can't take this anymore. Don't you care about your child at all? Luis's face was just as dark. He looked at me. Elena, isn't this too vicious? You catch someone, yet you don't care whether Victoria and the baby live or die? Do you want it to end in 2 deaths before you're satisfied? You weren't like this before. Is it because you married Pablo that you think you can ignore human life and bully others with power? My whole body trembled. He still dared to talk about the past? 5 years ago, when full-body chemotherapy left me in agony, he used his authority at the hospital to cut off my painkillers. He watched me thrash on the hospital bed in unbearable pain, as if he were observing a performance that had nothing to do with him, just because I had hysterically cursed Victoria as a homewrecker. This was how he punished me. Chapter 7. Perhaps sensing my emotions, Pablo gently patted my back. His voice grew even colder. Elena is my wife. Of course she has the right to throw her weight around. Luis, you can give your wife special treatment too, as long as you have the ability. Luis ground his teeth in anger. Elena, don't go too far. Enough. Pablo had someone bring over a chair, sat down, then pulled me straight onto his lap. Luis. I said it, this won't be over until we catch the real mastermind behind whoever hurt my wife. Tell your wife to endure a little longer. If you say one more word and waste time, it won't be my time you're wasting. Victoria dug her nails into her fingers, growing more and more restless. But she had no choice. The man kneeling on the ground kept kowtowing. Sir, if I tell you who's behind it, will you spare me? Pablo gave a slight nod. The man suddenly pointed at Victoria, eyes burning. It was her. She gave me 500,000 and told me to stab your wife with an awl in public, so she could seize the opportunity and frame your wife for killing her child. And she also said, Victoria suddenly went insane, screaming at the top of her lungs. Shut up. I didn't. You wanted to kill someone, how can you pin it on me? I bet you took advantage of the chaos, that's why I lost my baby. Give me my child back. Biting back and shifting blame was Victoria's usual style, but this time, she was going to be disappointed. After being thrown under the bus, the man immediately exploded, pointing at Victoria's nose as he cursed. You shameless bitch, the baby in your belly was already dead. You slept with another man and miscarried, but you were afraid of being exposed. So you came up with the scheme to frame Mrs. Pablo. Now that I've exposed you, you want to dump it on me again? Miss Victoria, I have proof for everything. With that, the man pulled out his phone and brought up his bank transaction records. They showed that a week earlier, there had indeed been a transfer of 500,000. The sender was Victoria. On top of that, the man swiped open his photo album. It was filled with videos of Victoria acting intimately with strange men in a bar. With her belly showing, she twisted her body shamelessly in front of a young guy. In the end, the two of them drank and rushed upstairs to a private room, kissing as they went. Right after that, the footage showed Victoria's male companion running out in panic. Only the next morning did Victoria leave the bar, pale-faced. She took a taxi straight to a private clinic. The more Luis watched, the darker his face became. He released his grip. Victoria fell straight down from his arms onto the floor, crying out in pain. Luis, you're not actually believing this, are you? How could I possibly do something like that? Luis crouched down and grabbed her wrist. Whether it's true or not, you'll know once I take your pulse. Chapter 8. No. Victoria instinctively tried to pull away, but Luis held her tightly. Not long after, Luis flung her wrist away in disgust. Then he stood up, drew a deep breath, and looked at Pablo. Mr. Pablo, if hiring someone to attack your wife really was Victoria's doing, then I'll hand her over to you. Do with her as you please. Luis? What are you saying? I'm your wife. Victoria screamed in terror. Luis no longer had any of the warmth he used to show her. His voice turned icy. Not anymore. I'll draft the divorce papers as soon as possible and send them to you. The child is mine. Take care of yourself, Luis. I love you so much, you can't do this to me. Why is it that you can go rent a room with Elena, but I can't go rent a room with other men? By the end, Victoria no longer cared about dignity, and when Pablo heard that, his hand tightened unconsciously, gripping my waist. I lowered my head and explained into his ear. This morning I didn't answer the phone. Luis had the staff open my hotel room door and came in himself. He said he was afraid this teaching case would die on his turf, so he panicked and came to check. Pablo's hand loosened. He brushed my hair aside with tenderness. It was my oversight. I should have come back with you earlier. You can't face these things alone. I shook my head. From the moment Pablo saved me, my life had been nothing but redemption. He spent a fortune hiring internationally renowned oncology experts to treat me. He also hired top psychologists to heal my trauma, inside and out. Pablo gave me a second life. Without him, there wouldn't be the me of today. And through my contact with Pablo, I gradually touched the softness in his heart. We saved each other. It took 2 years before we decided to get married. 3 years later, he knew I wanted revenge for my mother. So he hosted this medical exchange conference domestically, letting me enter under a brand new identity, to do what I wanted to do. I was immersed in Pablo's tenderness. On the other side, Luis slapped Victoria hard across the face. His hand shook as he sneered. Victoria, I have never once done anything that betrayed you. On the contrary, 5 years ago, I did many things that hurt Elena for you. Now that I think about it, I really was blinded by stupidity, ridiculously stupid. You've disappointed me too much. After that, Luis looked at me with shattered eyes. Elena, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I did so many things to wrong you. I misjudged people. Can you forgive me? Chapter 9. The man who had identified Victoria was dragged away by the bodyguards. I turned around, sitting on Pablo's lap. My expression calm. No. Luis's eyes flickered. I took out the evidence I had uncovered on my phone and placed it in front of him. My mother's death 5 years ago wasn't an accident, was it? Luis, you covered up for a murderer, and you still want my forgiveness? Luis's face turned ashen. His lips trembled, his expression full of pain. I'm sorry. I only found out later about that nail. I already regretted it back then. Elena! I know you won't believe what I'm saying, but you have no idea how excited I was when I found out you weren't dead. But about your mother's death, I really didn't do it on purpose. I cut him off, shouting sharply, "Don't call her mom. You're not worthy." Luis, I will pursue responsibility to the very end. Take care of yourself. I was getting sleepy. I had to cling to Pablo just to steady myself. Pablo scooped me up in his arms and walked into the hospital. Luis tried to follow but was blocked by the bodyguards. I watched him clutch his head and collapse, disheveled, regretful. Pablo urged the hospital to expedite the test results. The good news was that the scissors didn't carry any infectious viruses. The bad news was that Pablo insisted on keeping me in the hospital for observation for a full day. I had spent nearly 7 years of my life in hospitals. I truly didn't want to stay in this place for even one more second. Pablo seemed to read my thoughts and immediately had the ward simply upgraded and redecorated. In just half a day, it looked like a cozy home. Elena, is this better? I nodded. Thank you, Pablo. Pablo kissed my forehead. He said he would handle everything that followed. I decided to enjoy the peace and focus on healing. That way, I could leave this place with Pablo sooner. The news of Luis cheating with his stepsister shot to the top of the trending charts. Those who once shipped him and Victoria the hardest now despised them just as fiercely. So Victoria was the real mistress all along. Just a few days ago she deliberately called reporters to twist the truth and smear the original wife, even dumping the blame for losing her baby, after fooling around, onto someone else. Absolutely shameless. Someone dug up that Victoria's biological mother also rose by being a mistress. This whole family is unbelievable, mother and daughter. Professional homewreckers. And this Luis is a total scumbag. While his wife was hospitalized with cancer, he was keeping a mistress next door and having a baby. Disgusting. Wave after wave of online abuse followed. To protect its reputation, the hospital fired Luis. Once a young chief physician with a bright future, he was now nothing. Wherever he went, people pointed and whispered. As for Victoria, once a million-follower influencer, she was cursed so badly she had to delete her account. She disappeared completely from the internet. When those people couldn't find an outlet online, they turned to the real world. Countless people staked out Victoria's residence. Whenever she appeared, someone would send her razor blades, funeral wreaths. Some even sent animal carcasses, cursing her to die. Chapter 10. She had no choice but to call the police. But what arrived wasn't help. It was an arrest warrant. After investigation, along with testimony from a cleaner, the evidence chain for her murder was airtight. She was arrested on the spot, standing beside Pablo. I watched with my own eyes as she finally received her retribution. Pablo held me and said softly, "You're really just letting her off like this? 10 years, how could that ever repay our mom's life?" I looked at him. "What do you want to do?" He lifted his gaze, signaling me to look ahead. I saw someone staring at Victoria with a sinister expression. The moment she was escorted out by the police, the man suddenly rushed forward and stabbed a knife viciously into Victoria's waist, pulled it out, then stabbed her again. His movements were swift, filled with bone-deep hatred. My body trembled slightly. Fortunately, Pablo covered my eyes in time. "Don't be afraid. I'm here." I steadied my breathing and slowly pulled his hand down. I saw Victoria collapse to the ground. Her face twisted with unwillingness as she looked at me. Why did he kill Victoria? I asked. Pablo held my hand and answered calmly. When a fallen woman toys with the emotions of honest men, she's digging her own grave. It turned out that for the sake of vanity, Victoria had scammed countless top donors. She milked them for money, dangling false hope in front of them. Those men truly believed that as long as they spent enough, they'd eventually get to have dinner with her, or even sleep with her. So they poured money in relentlessly. Some even gambled away everything they had. In the end, they realized it was all just Victoria's manipulation. Pablo merely bought them a train ticket, personally sent them to Victoria. When a poor man spends his last penny, he instantly becomes a ghost demanding life. Victoria died on the spot. Luis, as her husband, handled her funeral. He didn't shed a single tear throughout. Luis's father and Victoria's mother were afraid of losing face. They didn't even come to the funeral home. Reporters broadcast the bleak funeral live. I turned off my phone. From the guest bedroom came Pablo's voice. Wife, the doctor said you need to travel more. Tomorrow we're going to the grasslands to see cows and horses. I laughed. Aren't your company's employees enough workhorses for you? You still want to go see cows and horses? Pablo wrapped an arm around my waist, his breathing deepening. Then I'll take you to the sky, to see the stars. How? I turned my head. The rest of my words were swallowed by him. You know, I only have one way. By morning, Pablo had exhausted me into unconsciousness. Chapter 11. The knocking came again. Luis's voice sounded outside the door. He seemed drunk, his speech slurred. Elena, open the door. Can you see me just once? I know I was wrong. 5 years ago I was a bastard, a complete piece of trash. But look, I've kept our wedding ring on all this time. I really regret it. From the day you left, I've regretted everything. The reason I married Victoria was only for the child. You couldn't have children. So I had no choice but to keep the child. Elena, open the door, I'll apologize to you myself. Please don't ignore me. Pablo pinched the flesh at my waist again. Half asleep, I woke up only to be tossed into unconsciousness again. Only after Pablo had vented his frustration did he finally let me go. All I knew afterward was that Pablo opened the door. There was a loud scuffle outside. After that, Luis's voice never appeared again, because I was too exhausted. Pablo had the driver take me straight to the grasslands. My body visibly improved. All tumor cancer cells disappeared completely. I became a rare medical miracle. Pablo published an article about my journey fighting cancer. From a state barely clinging to life to now being full of vitality. It was inseparable from repeated chemotherapy. An endless struggle in pain. The story inspired countless cancer patients. Pablo also founded a foundation in my name, providing free aid to struggling families fighting cancer. My name spread far and wide. Just when I was about to forget the name Luis, I received a call from his father. Elena, could you come see Luis one last time? He keeps talking about you, drinking, fighting, searching for you everywhere. He was in a car accident. He's almost gone. My tone was calm. Sorry, I don't have time. The day I faked my death, no one cried for me. Now, I won't shed a single tear for any of them. My second life has only just begun.